Good afternoon. I'm Niran and this is Vinay. So we're both directors of BetterCo, and we're obviously business partners, brothers, and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, there's some photos there. We don't look anything alike, but you can decide who's prettier. So we're two directors of five. So there's also Justin and Alistair and Peter, and alongside of us, we've got a team of pretty good accountants and bookkeepers and advisors. So just welcome to everyone that doesn't know us for the first time. There's quite a lot of new people on this webinar, so just a brief introduction. So I thought it'd be useful just to kind of go through what we're about at BetterCo and our kind of business core purpose. So our purpose is to help Kiwis build a better business and live better lives. And we believe well, I personally believe this, if we can help businesses by 5% year on year, we'll have a better economy. People pay more taxes, people just live with more wealth and have money in general. So on top of that purpose, we have something else that we strongly believe in, and that's if you follow us on our social channels, it's all about one life. So we don't believe in having a work life and a personal life and having them separate. You only have one life, so we just kind of encourage people to make it a better one. And you spend a lot of time at work or in your business, so just kind of we're encouraging people to kind of merge those together. Personally, for me, I was kind of in the corporate world, and I was always taught to act professionally at work and then kind of be yourself outside of work, which kind of doesn't make sense now that I think about it. But yeah, so that one life thing, we're really proud of that and promote it a lot. And we know through experience that kind of focusing on we have 3 Ps in our business. It's purpose, people, profit. So if you kind of focus on your purpose and your people, then we expect profits to just kind of come. Obviously, they don't just come, but yeah, and that's kind of our 3 Ps. So yeah, just this webinar today is obviously about how to handle your money. It's centered around budgeting and personal budgeting specifically, and the lessons that you can kind of learn from this and apply year on year. So we just encourage you to do that. Me and Vinay, just a bit of a backstory on kind of how this topic eventuated. We grew up in a family of 6, so me, mum, dad, my grandma, me and Vinay obviously, and then our sister. So and that household had one income, so we know how hard it is to manage your money. Dad worked pretty hard to kind of give us the things that we needed. He basically had no education in terms of money management. In fact, he had experience, but no one actually taught him how to do these things. We kind of learned how to budget from quite a young age, I think, subconsciously, and like not knowing that we were actually maintaining a budget. But I was given a 3B1 book like that. I don't know if anyone remembers that one, but basically it had 2 columns in it, money coming in, money going out. So Dad just got us a couple of dollars a week in terms of pocket money. Would get paid for chores like cutting the grass, washing the dishes, cleaning the toilet, all sorts of stuff. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it taught us, that you have to actually look after the stuff that's coming in and then manage the stuff that's going out. We also taught, actually, ironically, that we should keep half of the money that comes in and put it away for savings, which seems pretty ridiculous now that I think about it, because it's a lot of money. But yeah, if you do that well, you can get interest-free loans from your brother. Yeah, and that's what I did. So Vinay used to be a pretty good saver. I was terrible. But yeah, so there's a bit of a backstory on this topic. Vinay might have some things to add, so I'll let him introduce himself just quickly.
G'day. So yeah, Vinay, Niran's younger brother. As he said, we've got a pretty, I guess, green and pretty amateur background in budgeting from an early age, but we were taught to look after your money. So yeah, that 3B1 book, I remember that. I used to go down to the dairy with my $5 and come back and write $2.40, and I'd write Magnum. And I would know that I'd have $2.60 left. So it started at quite a young age, but I think that was kind of the catalyst for how interested I got in money itself. But more so how to look after it. I think the want for making money came afterwards, but it started out for me in terms of look, some money's coming in. How do I look after this? Because it's pretty hard to come by. But yeah, so we're looking forward to this webinar today.
Cool, thanks, mate. And so just before I go through the thought of the day, you can have a read of it while I'm talking, but just a bit of a disclaimer. So none of this that we're doing today is kind of financial advice. It's kind of personal opinion and experience that we're talking about here. If you do require advice, then we'll do it outside of this forum, obviously. But please don't sue us based on the information you hear today. Would we appreciate that? So this thought it's critical that kids start to learn the value of money, short-term and long-term savings and budgeting at an early age. So it's kind of ironic, but yeah, that is what it is. One of the things that I have kind of annoyed me for a while now is, this money 101 thing is not taught at schools, and I wish it has. Well, I wish it was. It's been a long time since I was at school, but nothing's really changed in that space. But I think that would have changed a lot, but look, we can't control that. So today we're just going to teach as much as we know and encourage you to keep learning about money. And one of the things that's kind of this pandemic, I guess this COVID thing has kind of taught us, or things that we've learned around the kind of business community, is the financial awareness skills are kind of limited. And actually not many people have a personal budget. In fact, not many people have a business budget in general. So like we want people to do more of that stuff because it's a plan. It's not something you dump in the drawer. And so sometimes, as accountants, we tend to focus more on business budgets, forecasts, and not so much on the personal budgeting aspect of financial management. But we get a lot of questions from clients about, their personal spending, and sometimes along the lines of like, did I really spend that much money? And normally it's like, yeah, you did, but they don't know where it went. So just keep your thought in the back of your mind while we go through these slides today. So just a quick agenda. So we're going to split this up between Vinay and myself. I might pipe in every now and again to kind of challenge each other or just comment on different slides. But understanding, so number one is I'll take you through understanding your personal budget. What is that? The obvious and unexpected kind of benefits. And then the components of kind of personal budgeting, how to complete your personal budget, and creating accountability framework will be done by Vinay. So we really encourage, we've got a pretty cool tool here that is what you can use to create your budget. It's a pretty good workbook. So, and if you couple that with accountability, you'll see some real results. And then I'll jump back in, go through some next steps. So, it's all great that you're sitting here today, but I'm quite an action-oriented person. So if you don't take action, then I'll try to help you. But yeah, so we'll go through those, and then the support's always available. So it's all good and well to tell you this stuff, but if we don't give you support or you don't seek support, then this information is also useless. And then we'll questions and answers. So yeah, just fire through those questions as we get through it. Like we said, no dumb question. Cool. So the definition of a personal budget, I mean, what is it? This one's a very useful definition. Actually, it's made up into 3 parts. Firstly, this is a personal budget. Its purpose is to form, and form is quite different to the budget you create for your business. And the second part of that is, your personal budget is not something you create and then you put in the bottom of your drawer. It's like an actionable plan. In fact, there should be no document that you're creating and putting into the bottom of your drawer, because why are you doing it? But if you create this plan and it's actionable, it will help you to create, better financial decisions and live your kind of lifestyle goals. And that kind of lifestyle goals is fitting into this whole one life thing that we go on about. And then lastly, a personal budget, it's forward facing, that way, whichever way is forward in your screen. But we love data, so we love to look at your historical stuff, but it's kind of going, okay, what does the next 12 months look like? In fact, I like to know what the next 36 months look like. You can go through different things in your family or your personal life, Like you might have a kid going to daycare, or you might have a kid going to school, which means daycare savings. You might have a pregnant wife, or a wife that's just starting a job, or a wife not working, blah, blah, blah. So you get the drift. So just kind of looking out beyond 12 months is kind of important sometimes as well. Well, not sometimes, it is important, but at least start with 12. And then just put really simply, a personal budget is a plan, and it lays it out. It's about how you spend money and save money. I'll add to that, actually, it's also about how you can make money. So a lot of people, they always go, oh, I want to make money, I want to make money. But when are you going to make the money, and what month do you see those extra kind of incoming, when's the cash flow get better? For example, if you're an employee and you've got a performance of like review in your job coming up, and in your budget it says in July that you need to receive a 10 grand pay rise, for instance, then the budget's going to help you make sure you deliver. We actually ask the question, and I think that's quite important, because a lot of people come up to their pay review and go, oh, should I better ask for 10 grand? It's just something I need, but you don't actually know you need it. But if you budget it, you know you need to do it, and then you can kind of do things leading up to the 6 months when you ask for that money, and actually get an outcome. So I'm a big believer of making money and earning it, as well as spending and saving. Cool. So here are the benefits. So there's kind of 10 points here. I'll summarize them in a slide after this, but let's get into the kind of look, if you can't find a benefit, I mean, I've listed 10 here. If none of these are of value to you, just jump out of the webinar now, because it's probably useless, the rest of it. But number one for me is kind of gaining control. So you need control. The budget will give you control. The value in having more control over your financial future, like, you can't underestimate that. Like, why would you not? And then kind of focusing on your budget brings your focus into something that you can have actual control of. So that's number one. Number two is focus. So, as I said at the beginning, a personal budget helps you focus on your personal goals, but ultimately your kind of money goals as well. So yeah, have focus, and then you'll have better awareness of where your actual money is going, and I think that's quite important. And so, like I said before, one of the comments we always get from clients as we deliver their kind of annual reports, financial statements, tax returns, whatever we do in that space, we can't possibly have spent that sort of money last year. And my response is kind of generally the same. It's like, yeah, you did. And then it's typically followed up by, well, do you know where it went? And then you kind of get this blank look over their face, and they're like, nope. Or if it's a husband and wife, or like business partners, they start looking at each other and they're like, I know you spend more money than me, blah, blah, blah. So, and we kind of go on about this communication piece a little bit later, because that's quite important. And it's quite important around setting budgets. If you don't communicate these things, they're kind of useless. But if you've ever had that kind of thought and like, don't know where my money went, then you're in very good company. We see a lot of people like that. And this is kind of more reason for you to take action today is, like, all you need to do is spend 1 hour a month, on your personal spending and your budget, to have greater awareness of seeing where your money actually goes. And in fact, I have clients that sit down, kind of, it's like their ritual every Sunday. I mean, I wouldn't do this, but they do it every Sunday night after dinner. They start talking about their budget and, putting in the actuals and that sort of stuff. But that's quite good, and these people are well off, and I know that. But what they do is they go, well, you had 6 craft beers last week and you did your nails. So they kind of micromanage it, and they go, well, next week, no backfills on your nails and 2 less craft beers, and you kind of, they're saving some money. It might be chum change, but that's what they do. And it works well for them. So you can't find your own kind of ways of managing money. I do things differently. I wake up every morning and I check my bank accounts. I've got every single bank and lots of different bank accounts. And Vinay will probably touch on the whole buckets thing. Is, have your bucket for every sort of different thing, and there's no limits to how many bank accounts you can have. So number 3, 4, and 5. So awareness, habit, and managing debt. So having personal money goals and awareness around how much money you're spending and what creates better money habits, which in turn will help you manage your debt. So a lot of people with bad debt out there, like, it's pretty scary. personal finance, vehicle finance, just kind of old holiday money that they're still paying off. And then already talking about the next trip, not that we can go anywhere, but I'm a big believer of debt. I love debt. I love good debt. I hate bad debt. But good debt is basically not your money. It's somebody else's money that you can kind of invest to make in something that's going to generate more money for you, i.e. like an investment property. Usually you have to put up a little bit of money, but the returns are there. So yeah, we should cover off that kind of managing debt thing. You need to cover off how you manage debt in your budget. So if you've got debt, then you need to keep listening and take action at the end of this. And then my most favorite one is this kind of wealth goal thing. So we have a business goal and you have personal goals, but a lot of people don't have a wealth goal. So like what is that? What does your retirement look like? How much money in terms of like cash do you want to have? When I say cash, it could be equity, it could be all sorts of things, but like if you liquidated all your assets and all your kind of paid off all your debts, what's left? And that's kind of what your wealth is, I guess. And the whole new million. So I think back in the day, we used to call people millionaires. Basically, like $1 million is bugger all now. Like you can't buy a house in Auckland for anywhere. Like you got to be close to $1 million, put it that way, if not well over. And so the whole new millionaire is basically called. I think it's $7 million of wealth now. Is that? I think that's the number, even. You have to have $7 million
Yeah, pretty much the new
to be a
million
millionaire.
is 7 million now. So you're not a millionaire until you're a 7 millionaire.
So if you thought you were a millionaire, you're not, based on old kind of theories and what we used to think millionaires were. So yeah, anyway, going on the whole wealth goal thing, so figure that out. And sometimes you might be creating, you might, so if I use my dad, for example, he raised us, and I think that to him, he didn't have a wealth goal, he didn't have a retirement plan. Fortunately for us, he invested in his kids and they kind of are his wealth plan now. But yeah, like they're like I would have loved for him to have been able to be like, oh, I want to retire now, I'm 62, instead of he's coming to us going, boys, I need to retire, and we're like, okay, cool, we'll sort you out, sort of thing. But yeah, let's not be that. They do what they do at the time, but we got to be better. So where are we? So number 7 is warning signs. So I love this one too, actually. So if you have a budget, you're going to be able to see things, and you'll be able to see them now as opposed to later. And so when I say warning signs, for example, and they could be like warning in terms of bad, or they could be a good sign, right? So if I think
I
about
think
my
this is going
budget,
to be obvious when I go through the template as well. You'll see how much income there is and then how much there's nothing left at the end of it. But yeah, it'll be
yeah,
good.
right. Okay, perfect. And so like if I think about my budget last year, April, well, let's talk of January, December. In July, I was looking at my budget and I was like, wow, there's this big spike going on here. Like, where did that come from, And really, it wasn't to do with anything to do with income because it's pretty steady. But I realized that I'd budgeted on Shiv's birthday when he turned 3 that I was going to get a 20-hour free daycare kind of cost, and it's kind of made me many thousands of dollars for the rest of, and so those kind of signals are quite good. And then I'm like, whoa, I've got this extra money now. What do I do with it? And then you kind of go and invest it or do whatever you want. But those warning signals are quite good. And again, another benefit. Number 8 is my number 2 favorite. So communication. Oh, I just love this one. I think not many people communicate their kind of things or the problems with they just don't communicate the stuff with their families, right? So, and then if you don't have a plan or you're not communicating, I always go and see, oh, you did this last week and that's how much money you spent, rather than go, this is how much money we're going to spend moving forward, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to achieve our goals. So rather than finger pointing, we are now in a position that's a bit more positive and we can start to work on these goals together. So communication is the number one thing once you created this kind of budget. And so according to marriage guidance experts, I'm no expert by the way in this kind of field, but finance conflict is like number one. It's one of the top 3 actually, in terms of conflicts at home. So Yeah, and then the second one is parenting, and the third one is sex, believe it or not. So I can't help you with parenting, and I can't help you with your sex life, but I can help you with some money. So let's kind of at least get that money one sorted, and then we'll kind of work on the others through other means. Number 9, so this is about having tools, right? So it's a wealth tool. So at the end of the day, it's part of your toolbox. Like if you're building, you got your screwdriver, your hammer, blah, blah. When you're in business, you have your business budget, you have your business plan, you have your personal budget, and that's all the stuff you pull out and go, and that's how you deliver kind of results, I guess. And number 10, it's pretty simple. It's ultimately gives you a better life. So why wouldn't you have a budget? So we'll just jump on to the next slide. So I just kind of summarize that with kind of the key words, going 1 to 10. So, control, focus, have a bit of awareness, create good habits, debt management. Debt management could be debt restructure too. So client the other day, wants to sell me his car, for instance, and I'm like, yeah, I'm keen to buy it, but it's like 25 grand cheaper than he should be selling it. And I'm jumping him down, but then I'm like, well, actually, why don't you just restructure your debt? And the reason he's got all this going on is because he just bought a house and it's about cash tight. But in the end, you can find ways to kind of manage the debt. Wealth goals, warning system, communication, more money, and better life. So those are just kind of keywords. So if you want to write these things down, or just have a look at them later, at least kind of, look at those words. I think they're quite cool. So those are the benefits. Why people avoid personal budgeting. I'm going to let Vinay sort of cover this off. And then I'll kind of loop back in later and pipe in wherever I need to. Let me just hand you over, mate. There you go, should be coming through.
Beautiful. Cool. So hopefully everybody can see that. I think we're live.
Looking good. Yeah, you're good.
So 7's my lucky number. So I've got 7 reasons why people avoid personal budgeting. The first one's obvious. It takes a bit of work, and it's just a little bit of upfront work. It's not what people think, that it's like this big onerous task that you have to do every month. But the number one thing is that they just think it's too hard to start. And the second one, budget. Whenever anyone hears budget, they just think cost cutting, and they think, shit, I'm gonna have to have baked beans for dinner. Just not the case. It's not really our style to cut too many costs in a budget. A budget is more about knowing where you are and planning for the future. The third one is just a skills limitation, to be honest. Most people just don't know where to start and how to prepare one. So hopefully we can answer that question today. And Niran touched on number 4, which is the fear of putting money, the subject of money, on the table. If you're just not talking about it because you're scared, then you're never going to get anywhere. It just gets easier once you talk about it once, and then again and again and again. So, and then the 5th one, this one's actually really common for the females, the fear of what they'll find. Most of my female clients, this is the sole reason they don't have a budget. They're just scared shitless of what they're going to find and where they're spending their money. Number 6 is the big one for males, in fact. They just think that they just don't need one because their money's in order. Everything seems tickety-boo. But yeah, I'll show you the example shortly, and it'll show you that it might not be tickety-boo. And then the last one's an obvious one. People are just lazy sometimes when it comes to money, and there's other priorities. But yeah, those are my top 7. So what does that really mean? Well, you need to have, I think personally, the easiest way to get your finances together is to get hold of a simple budget template, and we're going to go through one in a minute. But there's so many apps these days, and a couple that we know that clients use are like Pocketsmith. There's one called Wally, and another one called Good Budget, which ties in with charity, which is quite cool. But there's some clients out there as well that go one step further, and they actually have an accountability coach or a finance specialist that works in with them. And that's not a financial advisor per se, someone who invests your money, but it's someone who helps you look after your money. And then the second one for me is the easiest way to look after your money is to keep it tidy. It's like a car or a house. If the thing is tidy, it's much easier to see if it's got a scratch on it. And that happens in money a lot. So for me, the easiest way to do that is to have buckets, and buckets just means multiple bank accounts. So this is a system effectively that I kind of created for my family, given the things that are important to us. And so we have a personal account, both Kalinda and I. We also have a joint spending account, and so whenever money goes into that personal spending account, we don't care where it goes. Once it's in there, it's gone. The joint spending account gets monitored. The mortgage and the household expenses all get monitored. We like traveling, so we make sure we have a separate travel bucket. It's really easy to just go out on a whim and say we're going to go to Europe. A bit harder these days with COVID, but it's a bit easier to make those decisions when you know there's a bank account there and it might have 10 grand in there or 15 grand or whatever it is that you've set up over time. And then, yeah, there's some other buckets there, investments, you have a credit card. We talk a lot about, well, we don't personally talk a lot about an emergency fund, but you hear it a lot in the world, not just New Zealand, and everyone wonders, oh, what's a good amount for emergency fund? And people throw around numbers like 3 months salary and that sort of thing. But to me, an emergency fund should never, ever come to an amount. Like, you should just be putting money in there and never stop. And then you just have joint savings. So the reason you set up a system like this is so you can automate. So in our house, we call it slice and dice. The money comes in, and before anyone even touches it, all the automatic payments are set up and the money just goes. So that leaves you with a little bit at the end to just manually handle and a little bit left over, and you just chuck that into a savings account. It seems like overkill to some people, but I wrote down before we started this webinar, I went and had a look. So I've got 10 check accounts and savings accounts at ASB. I've got 2 credit cards at ASB. I've got 4 bank accounts at ANZ, 1 credit card at ANZ, and 6 bank accounts at BNZ, plus all the loan accounts, which is probably 8 or 9. So I've got all these buckets, and it probably stress people out, but it does the complete opposite for me. I know exactly where my dollars are, and I know exactly what the dollar is for and where it's going to get spent. And it helps us make decisions because we can't use that money until we have it there.
Sorry, mate, there's just a quick question here. Is that something you can help people set up, like the buckets?
Yeah, I think
is
that's
it a
my favorite
personal
thing to do, to be honest, is setting up buckets for people. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but that is definitely the first step, or one of the first steps. But yeah, definitely we help people, and that's got to be different for each person. It's not gonna, my system is not gonna work for everyone. Okay, so cash flow is really what personal budgeting means. Money comes in, money goes out, but where is it going? And this is the fundamental basis for a budget is okay, money comes in, and then you've got to have categories. It's no good having lines in your budget that say like Netflix, McDonald's, shopping, HelloFresh. Like, that is just like way too detailed, and it just becomes too cumbersome. So like, ideally, you don't want to be looking at too much detail, but you want to have high level information, and then that will enable you to put in actual numbers at the end of the month at a really high level, because you're going to have stuff like spending money at a dairy. It's like, do you really want to measure that? Not really. And then at the end of that monthly monitoring, you check, are we on track? Do we need to change our behavior? Are we doing the right things? And Niran's favorite thing to do, which is change the budget. If you can see that, oh, something's changed, has your income gone up? Has your insurance changed? That sort of thing. Right, so we'll go into what you actually need to do to complete a budget. So hopefully I can get people seeing this. So this is an example. And let me just take that over there. This is an example of our template. And I've just chucked some fake data in here. You can see I've put Jane Doe and I've put the next 12 months. And yeah, it'll start from April, but just to keep it in a financial year. People can be visual or they can be detailed. So the visual representation is at the front. It shows you that there's a lot of income in there. And I've used a family here, husband, wife, one kid and a dog. And so the best thing about this spreadsheet is you can change your frequency. So if you have someone who's in business like me, and then let's say you have someone on a PAYE salary, say the other husband or wife, you can allow for these things in here. And then if you have a rental property, you can put that income in here and you can say weekly. That makes it really easy to prepare this budget. It doesn't take very long. This one example yesterday, banging these numbers in, didn't take me longer than half an hour. And so let's just go through this, and I just want to stipulate one thing. This is a very simplistic budget when you think about it, because it's like it's taking this frequency and it's just saying that same thing is going to happen every month, and in reality the same thing doesn't ever happen every month, and you need to allow for some ups and downs. You might have some big expenses at certain times of the year. Right, so if you've got this much income during the month, it's like, well, where is that going to get spent? So we talked about categories. So household is one category. So you put your mortgage payments in, your rates, water rates, and you go all the way down. You can get all this data really easy from your spending accounts. Let's move into food. You've got groceries, and I really like the fact that takeaways and dining out and food subscriptions is all separated from groceries. That just shows you, when we go to the actual performance down here, it'll show you why it's important to break that out. And then you can have other categories, like we've just put in craft beer in there because it just shows you that, okay, that's important to me. I'm going to spend my $30 a week, whatever, and it's going into the budget. And everybody agrees. And you might say, all right, we've got an annual balance this year of $2,000 we're allowed to spend on clothes and maybe $500 on shoes. Let's keep going. And then if you got one kid, childcare might cost you $300 a week. I think our one's going to be about 300, 360 starting in a couple of months. So it's a bit of a scary thought looking at 15 grand. Education, people undervalue that, but it's really important that you keep educating yourself and your children. So that could be like tuition and stuff. Then you might give your kids like pocket money. So these things can all be changed, but we've locked them all at the moment, but only other is the only column row, in fact, that we can change. This gets really detailed now into doctors, dentists, optometrists, physio. Like you put everything in here that's important to you and must happen for your life to continue the way it is. Insurance, as you get older, it gets really important to get these sort of things in place. Thankfully, I'm not an insurance advisor because this is just a different kettle of fish, how you even advise on this stuff. And then transport is really important. Like, it's just going to happen. No matter what happens to the petrol price, you're probably still going to drive. Lifestyle, there's quite a lot into here, but like I get my hair cut every 3 weeks, chuck it in there. It's grooming. Make sure you've got your gym memberships in there. Entertainment, that's like going out. Might like to go to gigs and shows and that sort of stuff. Gifts was a really big one for me a couple of years ago. I never budgeted for gifts, and then during Christmas, one year, I think once we started giving all the kids were a bit older, all our cousins and stuff, our gift budget at Christmas was up at around $1,000. So you just plan that all out. And then you can put debt repayments in here, and this is where Niran was talking about restructuring debt. So we know that some people have bad debt, and I'm looking at some of the names that are in this webinar at the moment, and I know that some of you are interested to know how to manage your money better and to reverse some of these things that have happened in the past. So you might have some credit card debt, You might have some hire purchases. You might have some like car loans. So we can actually structure that in here and pay that debt off and just be gone with the bad debt. And I've just put a bank loan in there, and that would be the debt repayment on that rental property. Right, so what does this all mean? You got about $18,000 of expenses a month as a family, right? And we spoke about up the top, the income, it's about 18 grand a month. So this cash surplus is only $468 a month. And if you look at this total income, including that rent, it's $222,000. So we commonly get asked the question from clients, how much do I need to be making to live a decent life in Auckland? There's no number. I can't give you a number. I wrote a blog about 4 years ago, and I think within a couple of months it had 1,000 comments, and people were trying to answer the question. Like, there's no actual number that will make you comfortable living your life. It's all about matching your income and expenses. Right, so each month, you just go in there and you whack in exactly what happened during the month, and that will report back against the budget. So I've just filled this out based on some rubbish data, or made up data, I should say. And you can see, oh, okay, look, we overspent here by $10, or we underspent there, and there's an extra $312. We decided to start doing a budget, and so we went out for dining, and we didn't spend as much as we budgeted for, so that's great. And then at the end of it, you've got that big, hairy, audacious goal, which is to pay off these debts. You can say, okay, did we do that? Yeah, we did. You should say, oh, I paid that loan too. And say, okay, I spent 16,800. There's 18,000 that came in. My surplus is going to be year to date. Across the side, you're going to have, you've got more money that came in that went out. So it's a positive thing, even though it shows red here. That means that you've underspent, which is great. Which is great. So you just do this throughout the year, and then ideally you get to a part where you go, okay, we either don't need to be doing this anymore, or we need to change behavior. Right, so let's move forward. Now, there's no point preparing a budget like that if you don't actually monitor it, and it's good experience to get it going. But that's just the first step. Like, if you're actually going to get any value out of that and improve your habits, then you can't just set and forget. You actually need to start tracking your expenditure. And I think it's a bit overkill doing it more than a month, personally. I know we have people that do, and we have people that do it over 2 months, 3 months, but quarterly would be like my absolute bare minimum. Monthly seems acceptable. Right, we talked about tracking your spending, and that's the easiest way to do that is the buckets. So you just have one spending account and one credit card. There should be no other expenditure that comes out of any other bucket. If you have money coming out of everywhere, this is never going to work. Review and reset monthly, I think, is my recommendation, not to do it any less or more than that. Now, couples, and let's just say couples find this extremely difficult, because budgeting is not a topic that's talked about a lot, and quite often people come into relationships with different spending habits, and it can create angst. So if you do need external help, it's best to just get that external help and get independent accountability. So each month you're actually going and measuring this and keeping each other accountable. This is my personal opinion, but I personally don't think couples can go. I think couples that work together financially go further than couples that work separately. And then, honestly, throughout this entire process, you need to have fun. So one of the ways Kalinda and I do this is that when we talk about our finances, we actually go out for dinner, and we talk about it when we're out at dinner, which is separate to like date night. But we do it over dinner, so we're kind of rewarding ourselves for being good and looking after the money, but still spending about $80 to $100 on that dinner. So it's like a two birds, one stone. And the most important thing is when you're doing that, not to move the goalposts, because it's really easy to say, oh, we're doing this well, we need to either do better or lay off a little bit. It's really important to keep those goalposts set and just keep charging at them. So if we think about the thought of the day right at the start that Niran was talking about the kids, teaching the kids early. Personally, I think that this is something you should share with your kids if your kids are a bit older, especially when if they're teenagers, because the process and the conversation about money can be normalized from a really young age if you talk about it early. It's exactly like sex. The earlier you talk about it, the easier it is to talk about it.
So that sounds like a bit of experience here, mate.
Yeah. So I guess my closing comment on this is a couple of points here. Like, clearly the people that are in this webinar don't want to be average, and you will all have dreams, but those dreams need to be turned into goals, and goals need to be turned into actions and steps. And if you do some actions and steps and outline those, you should get some life-changing results. I know when I started doing this in this format about 5 years ago, possibly 6 years ago, it just gave me this pathway to actually know what I'm doing. And so the average retiree at the moment in New Zealand retires with $19,000 in the bank account, and 19 grand is nothing. Like, you're just not going to get anywhere. And so that's average. So if you want to be average with 19 grand, that's fine. But if you don't, you need to be making decisions now, because the decisions you make now will be the life that you live in about 3 to 5 years' time. So the life you're living currently today is because of decisions you made 3 to 5 years ago. So if you make some positive decisions now, you'll be living a better life in 3 to 5 years. If you do nothing or you make negative decisions, you'll probably be in the same place, if not worse, in 3 to 5 years. So for me, it's all about living a better life. And yeah, it's only up to you to do this. The only other way it's going to be up to somebody else is if you pay them to make sure that it happens. So we'll go on to next steps. Niran, I might just throw this back to you.
Yeah, mate, check it back. Cool. I think that's come up. Does that come up there?
Yep.
You can see that. All right, cool. So we're nearly done, guys. So kind of next steps, so some actionable stuff here. Now, I think you need to focus on the benefits here. You know, we said some negative stuff, and obviously this stuff is really it's quite confronting. It's even more confronting when you put the numbers in. And some of you might be feeling a bit shit, to be honest. Like sometimes I feel really shit because I didn't do something very well. But look, that's not what's intended here. We're trying to show you the light per se, or show you the light. But yeah, so no one's going to judge you. Like your spouse not going to judge you, your kids aren't going to judge you, your family. Yeah, we definitely ain't going to judge you as accountants and advisors or whatever. Yeah, so just focus on setting a personal budget. Your personal budget, like it is exactly that. It's personal, and so to reflect some of the decisions around how you spend your money, and you know how you should reduce your debt and savings and investments. So yeah, it's personal. So it is what it is. You know, don't dwell on the roadblocks. I think when I mentioned that, like, just got to do stuff. You know, the time, fear, all that pride stuff. Let's not dwell on it. Let's just kind of be a bit more positive and go, yeah, I need to do this, and let's get it going. And then actually just set a budget, like, you know, an annual personal budget, and control the things you can control. You know, like for me, I can't control my kids, so I don't try to control them. Yeah, but I can control my money. I can control the things I do. That was a joke. I can control them. I can't hear anyone laugh, but you know. So yeah, control what you can. And then obviously, if anything in life, get support. You know, make sure you have like you should always have support around. Doesn't matter what you're doing, have some support, and we're here if you need it. And so, where are we? Next slide. So how we can help. So look, we'll send you this template and review your budget for you. It costs you $500, which is, I mean, I'll guarantee that you'll either save or make $500 by using this template, or at least achieve your goals, as long as you do things in the right manner. And then number two is, look, we'll set your budget for you, help you with your buckets, and do some consulting or some coaching around that. Like we don't really, so I guess we have 5 spots available to do that. So first in, first serve. But yeah, again, like there's pretty much a guarantee that we're going to make you that $2,000 back, at least save it for you. And if you don't, look, happily give your money back. We're not doing this as a money maker. It's kind of just something that me and Vinay and the rest of the business are passionate about. Personal budget template, look, at least if you can't do the other two, do this one. It's free. Like just jump on Google and download a template. There's plenty of them, you know, and then just kind of put in the numbers and see what it spits out. Have the conversations and reward yourself for success, and blah 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 goes on. And there's a lot of people in this kind of a list at the moment that are never heard of BetterCo or are kind of new to who we are. So if anyone wants to jump on a call, we'll have a meeting. It's about your business. We'll be pretty excited to do that. So yeah, so all these, there's obviously free options. There's things that cost money, but don't let that be a roadblock today. So there's a number of...
She's laughing on the inside.
Who's sorry?
Robin says she's laughing on the inside.
Thanks. I always get worried that no one laughs at me, but thank you. There's a few questions there, mate. Do you just want to drill through those?
Yeah,
I think we got a bit of time. So
I think just some action steps for people taking action tonight or tomorrow or the weekend or whatever it is. The best things you can do next is go and get the data. Like, data makes you smarter. So go and figure out exactly what you've spent in the last 12 months and which categories those are. And the next best thing to do is to write down all of your debts and rank them from smallest to biggest. So start with that TV that you've got on hire purchase and then go all the way down to your mortgage. And the reason I say smallest to biggest is because the smallest ones are the ones that are hardest to find, and you actually don't care about them too much. But when you start adding all those small ones up, they will amount to something. And they're also easier to pay off faster. So the faster we get rid of them for you, the less debt you have. The smaller debts also usually have a higher interest rate, so it's costing you more. And then buckets. Have a crack at, this actually answers one of the questions. One of the questions is, are buckets bank accounts? Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
And so have a crack at doing your own buckets. It doesn't cost you anything extra at the bank. Bank accounts do not cost you money at the bank. You have to understand that, because it's all personal. When you're in business and you're on business banking, it can cost you money. But when you're doing it from a personal point of view, it doesn't cost you a thing, as long as you get the type of bank account right. So you'll have some check accounts and you'll have some savings accounts, and you just got to get those right, and credit cards, obviously.
It was basically pointless to have a savings account and cash in it at the bank at the moment. Like, you're not going to earn any interest. So yeah, on that note, you probably need to put that money to work. If you've got cash in the bank, don't leave it there. It needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are my 3 steps that I would encourage everyone to take in the next 24 to 48 hours. We've got a couple of questions here. These questions. Do the buckets represent different? Yes. Is the spreadsheet available online? So this particular spreadsheet won't be, but if you just Google budget template online, there's thousands and thousands. The reason we don't share this one is because it's like 99% of the cells are locked. You can't really edit anything, and if you edit it, it just breaks. So we don't share this one. But that we can share that template if you go back to Niran's how we can help you, that first personal budget review. So you would fill out our template, and then that $500 is for us to review it and then sit down with you and go over it. So that's where that template comes into play. And then one of the questions here is, are you manually entering expenses into your spreadsheet, or is it a data feed? So if you use the spreadsheet, obviously that's manual. And if you're using an app, that can be a data feed. In my experience, a data feed is hopeless when you don't have your buckets set right. So people spend money in their credit card and their personal bank account.
And just so when we set the budget, we don't just go and stores like what you call a zero budget. We'll go back and ask you for a whole lot of data on your bank statements and collect it. And we might know that all your credit card transaction, all your countdown stuff is there. And we'll just kind of create like some summaries and go, we spent $5,000 last year. Well, we're going to expect to spend 5. Plug those numbers, and you actually get some real like data. So it's not data fed, it's kind of us manipulating the data, putting it in. There's those apps that are all data fed. I don't personally, I don't love all of those systems. They're 90% good, but you kind of need something a bit more that's customized to what you do. Even harder if you're a business owner. It's very hard to use one of those apps. It's good for salary and wage earners.
For whatever reason, tend to use their business bank accounts as their personal bank accounts. So we did this personal budgeting exercise with a client about 3-4 months ago, and I found out she spent $7,600 in the last 12 months on Uber Eats. And that was from her personal bank account and her company bank accounts and credit cards on both sides. So there's 4 different areas where she was spending that money.
Cool, man. We've got 5 minutes left. Is there a cover? I mean, there's a lot of questions. So just pick a couple more, I think.
Yeah, hang on. Should you spend one afternoon night with your partner to regularly review actuals versus budget a night?
I think we spoke
I'll
about
answer this one. I think we spoke about it, but so in my house, I say Cal is the house CFO, so she manages all the house bank accounts. I think I've got enough to worry about from a business perspective. So she manages those accounts, and then we do the structure together. And then when we do our once a month date night, we review the position. And I guess you could call us like somewhat experts. So we don't actually fill in our spreadsheet anymore because we've automated our entire banking. We know that if a certain amount went into the bank account that wasn't allocated or allowed for, we know we've overspent, and then we'll cut back for the next month. So I guess depending on your level of expertise on budgeting, you will either have to meet once a month and update all your actuals with your partner. And if you're kind of like expert level, which I don't think anyone in this webinar probably is, then you don't need to go that far. We have 2 other questions. One is there such a, you said good debt, bad debt. Is there actually such a thing as good debt, bad debt? I'll let you answer that now.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So, I mean, good debt to my mind is, like I said earlier, it's money that is kind of working for you. So you might raise, I mean, if someone gave me $1 million and it was just debt and I had to pay it back to them at some point, but it made me $200,000 a year, for example, well, that's bloody good debt to have. And it might cost you 2% or 3% to have that debt, but you're making all that extra money, so that's good. When you buy a car, for example, and you're driving the newest Audi or whatever, like a car that's outside of what you actually need, well, that's kind of bad debt, especially if you put it on finance, because you're kind of just paying off a loan for the sake of driving this car, where there's actually other cheaper cars. So you kind of got to live within your means. Obviously, don't be unhappy in your purchase. You've got to make all those kind of small changes before you make a decision like that. But we see that a lot. We see a lot of business owners, they just go and buy a brand new car straight off the lot, and they're kind of already struggling in their personal life. We know you've already got personal debt, but you go and rack up another $1,800 a month in your vehicle finance that's coming to your business, which is sucking the cash flow that doesn't go into your personal thing. So, yeah, 100%. Good debt is great. I'd love more debt. if anyone wants to give me some money, I'm happy to pay you. Because the bank ain't going to give me any more. But yeah, I think it needs wider advice and a plan. You can't just go and keep taking up debt and not have a plan to actually pay it down at some point. So hopefully that answers that. If not, give me a call.
I think we'll answer this last question. So if you have enough to clear all of your bad debt, but know that you have big expenses coming up, should you clear it or continue piling on the savings for said expense and continue to pay what you can towards your bad debt? Someone's been listening to Dave Ramsey. So I think Niran and I probably differ in our opinions on this, possibly not. The only way I would ever clear that debt, knowing that big expense is coming up, is if I had the access to that capital again. If I didn't have access to the debt again, I wouldn't do it. How am I going to pay the other debt, the other expense? So that's a really simplistic answer.
Could I just jump in there? I feel like I can't see the name of this person, so that's a good thing. I feel like it's positioned for a big event that's coming up, and all I can say about that big event is don't spend the money that you think you're going to spend on it. You need to cut it back because you have other debt you need to focus on too. So don't go and blow that budget, or in fact just rein it back.
That's a good point. It depends what that expense is. Is it a necessary expense or not?
I feel like it's a wedding because I see it all the time. It's like, oh, my wife's dream was to have a 30 grand wedding. I go, oh, let's just go get some debt for it, eh?
30 grand gets you nothing at a wedding anymore, no?
Yeah, but I got married 7 years ago, mate. It's different. And I only spent 15 for the record. Okay, I think we should wrap it up because we're hitting 3 o'clock, so we just want to finish. Should we finish there?
Yeah, let's just end up with that parting thought, I think.
Who's got the slides? I do. There we go. That's you, mate. It's Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, that last question, I feel like that person was listening to Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a guy who's worth a couple of $100 million in America. He's a middle-aged white man, but he is funny as hell, and he's really serious about paying down debt. He hates debt. Any debt doesn't. Yeah, he's funny. Google him. Anyway, he says a budget is telling you where your money is going to go instead of actually wondering where it went. So it's looking forward, not backward. And that's probably our parting thought. This whole budgeting exercise is so you can look forward, not backward.
We haven't lost any people listening, so I'm just going to chuck that up because I want people to grab our details if you don't have them, because there's a whole lot of questions still coming through. So please, just get in touch because we're keen to answer them. But other than that, thanks very much for tuning in. We'll do something soon again, and just keen on any feedback, and if you want a particular topic or something like that, then sing out. But have a good afternoon. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.